Hello and welcome back to our webinar series, which we are putting on in conjunction with the Department of Education in Victoria. But everybody is welcome to join, and I can already see we have someone from New Zealand who's just said hello in the chat, so welcome everyone. This afternoon or this evening, if you're in New Zealand, we are going to be talking about taking your distance learning to the next level. And Chris and Jim, who we have welcome back again, I'm very excited to have back, are going to share a whole lot of different ways that we can use Chrome, our Chrome browser, Chromebooks, to do some really cool things that are beyond the core suite of tools that we often talk about when we talk about G Suite and Google for Education. I do just want to start by saying that because these tools are outside of our core suite of tools, that if you are in a Victorian department school, that we do encourage you to make sure that you do your privacy impact assessment on any tools that you use. And if you are in a Victorian department school and you have any queries about using tools or the privacy impact assessments, the email address that's on your screen right now is the best point of contact for you. We're working really closely with the Digital Learning Services unit from the department, and they are awesome at helping schools to get the most out of tools at this time. So feel free to contact them. That is enough from me. I am pleased to welcome back Jim Seal from Deploy Learning and Chris Hart from Unstuck Learning Design to lead our webinar this afternoon. We do have the chat that is underneath this stream, and we would love to hear from you throughout the webinar. Jump in there now, introduce yourself, say hi. It's really great for us to get feedback about who you are and where you're from. And then Chris and Jim are totally nimble and flexible and agile, and they will totally change their entire presentation to make sure that any of the questions you guys have who are watching live are addressed. No pressure, boys, but that's now I've actually said that out loud, so you have to do it. And then also, please make sure we are going to share a feedback link at the end of the webinar. And I have said this before, if you've joined us previously, your feedback is really, really valuable to us. We do consider feedback to be a gift, and we would love to hear from you so that we can continue to iterate and get better as this webinar series progresses. I know I said that was enough from me maybe 2 minutes ago, but I'm actually going to come back later. They're actually going to let me participate in tonight's webinar for the first time. So I will be back later to share some of my favorite tools as well. But for now, over to Chris and Jim.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. And Chris, I don't know about you, but when she said that we should be nimble, I think I may have hurt myself.
I've strained my neck and shoulder, yes.
So, I don't know how flexible it can be. But
I just wanted to say before we get into doing some really important pieces, how's your week been?
It's been good, thanks. It's what, Wednesday, Thursday?
I think it's Tuesday. Like November or something. I'm not even sure what month it is, mate. No, I did want to just say hello and to just to point out, because somebody asked me in a different webinar the other day, are you that Google man? And I was like, no. I'm not that Google man, and that both Jim and I, although we love working with Google, which we do, Kimberly is the true Googler in this conversation. So if we do anything wrong, she could sack us. But this week I've just been working with some organizations, doing a bit of design thinking and a bit of work around what comes after COVID-19. So it's been very energizing. But as ever, I'm really excited to be here and to share some of these Google tools. What have you been doing, Jim?
I feel like I've been doing the same. It's a busy time for all of us, even though that Google sends these shirts to us by mail and we get to wear them every one of these. I feel like I have a shirt for every single one of these webinars. But it's nice because working with a lot of schools at this time has been really it's been really great. I've been learning a lot. I hope everybody else has been learning a lot, and we're always grateful for Google to give us this time to share with you. And if you ever need any help or anything, you see our information there. Just give us a shout, and we'll be happy to work with you to see what we can do specifically for your needs.
Always. So before we get into the meat of the rest of the session, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which we are meeting today. And for Jim and I, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and to pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And although this kind of originally is in partnership with the Victorian Department, we do know we have lots of people who are coming in from outside of Victoria. If you all want to move here, you're more than welcome. Once the borders are open, you should, because it is a beautiful place. So I would, though, invite those people in on different lands and in New Zealand to think about the First Nations people that are connected to their land, and to think about that idea of coming together in this space to share in a really human way. So we're very excited to share with you today, and keep those the chat coming, and we'll be as flexible as we can.
That's right, Chris, and it's always great to hear feedback in the chat, and also as we move along, feel free to share what you're doing. A lot of you have some experience in some of the things we're talking about, so feel free to share, like, hey, I use it this way, or this is my favorite piece, this is my favorite tool. It's always going to help us. It's going to help you guys who are on the call as well. Chris, this is a website that we talk about every time we do this, and it's really it's a great website that Google's put together called teachfromhome.google. So be mindful of that URL. It's teachfromhome.google. There's no .com, no .com.edu, just that. And it's a great starting place. So if you're just getting into these tools and you're starting to figure out, like, what do I do with this? There's some great videos and resources on that website to really get you started.
And another place that you can definitely connect into, Jim and I are very honored, and Jim for a while longer than me, but me since 2013, are Google certified innovators. So we've been in this space as kind of community members for a long time. And this community has really come together, and it's wonderful for that to see that happen, to create this website. So we can probably drop that into the chat, which would be awesome. But this website is really, it's nothing to do with Google per se. It's really about the community of educators, Google educator groups, and trainers and innovators who come together. If you have some specific questions, you can actually jump on this link, pop your specific question in there, and one of us will get back to you. And the reply rate is incredibly fast, like it's within an hour. So Jim and I keep trying to jump into the spreadsheet, but someone's already got in there. So I can't remember what the stats are, and maybe we'll look that up for next week, but the stats are fantastic in the amount of kind of one-to-one support that this Google community is doing for other users of G Suite and Chromebooks. So I'm really excited for that. What we're going to do is just really quickly go through the learning design principles. So every time we talk about technology, Jim and I are passionate about that. It's connected to improving learning, and technology as really that amplifier of pedagogical practice. And what we want to do to just make really clear is when we're talking about technology, we're talking about building really strong connections between students and teachers, and students and students, and teachers and teachers. We're really interested in collaboration around rich learning experiences, and we want learning, growth, and thinking in the online space to be really the core of what we do. We do keep revisiting the high-impact teaching strategies, which, if you're a Victorian teacher, you will know these very well. They're part of those high-impact teaching strategies, which is strategically pushed out by the department. But all of you who are in education will look at that list and kind of think, yep, that makes sense. There's a lot of important stuff in there for us to look at.
And Chris, can I add, the other day I heard you talking to somebody about this, that it's really, as we talk about these tools, and we talk about, how to use these tools, it's important to bring the pedagogy first. And I love that, the way you said that to somebody on one of our calls, that what are you trying to do, and then match up that tool to help you with that. And that's ultimately what these webinars are all about, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what we're going to do is just to clarify a couple of things. The first thing we're going to clarify is, because the title of this webinar is much more about, we're definitely going to look at a little bit of G Suite, which is the stuff that you're all using. We've done a bunch of webinars previously with loads of great information on that. But we are going to talk about Chrome extensions and apps. So what we just wanted to do was to clarify with you, when we're talking about these things that we're going to talk about now, is what we mean by G Suite for education, what we mean by Chrome, and what we mean by Chrome OS. So G Suite for education is a suite of tools for collaboration across your domain. So Google Drive, Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Sheets, they all start with Google. So there's all of these the kind of collaborative tools that you have at your disposal, including Gmail and Calendar and Google Sites and a few other things. So that is G Suite for education. And if you're in the Victorian department, you'll either be in the Victorian department instance of that, or you might have your own domain as well. A number of schools do. And depending on how you've set up, your G Suite, you will have a domain which has all of these tools in it. So that's just important to just separate that out from Chrome. Chrome is a browser, and Chrome is probably, in fact, it's definitely the browser that you should use if you're using G Suite, I would say. There are other browsers out there by other technology companies. Chrome is a fantastic browser, and what we love, or the reason we love it, is the ability to add extensions. So shortly, Jim and I are going to be talking about extensions, and what we mean by that is this tiny little program that you can add into Chrome, which generally just does one thing. It's like a one outcome thing. So it might be a timer, or it might be something that allows you to share specifically or capture something. It just does one thing. So when we're talking about extensions, they live in Chrome. So they are slightly separate to G Suite. So G Suite for Education is a Google product. Chrome is a Google product, but a lot of these extensions are a third-party product. So when Kimberly mentioned the idea of security, privacy impact statements, it's important for that to happen. We're passing on the extensions and apps that we're suggesting are really good. We're passing that on to the Department for Education to help with that privacy impact assessment.
There's so many, Chris, there's so many of them.
Oh my, there's so many. And we've really kind of had to pare them right back. Something which is really important is a lot of you in Victoria and elsewhere in the world will be using Chrome OS. So Chrome OS is the Chrome operating system. And what that means is if you've got a Chrome device, a Chromebook, are the kind of most common ones. If you've got a Chromebook, it is using a Chrome operating system, which is kind of, it's a very, very light on operating system. So it's very fast. It updates like seamlessly in the background. And there's tons of stuff we could tell you about that. But just believe us that it's a really fantastic system to run Chromebooks. And what it also allows you to do is to run Android apps. So when we were talking about extensions, we're talking about those tiny little programs that run in Chrome, which generally do one job. When we're talking about Android apps, we're talking about those much bigger programs. So things that you might find on other tablet devices like iPads, there's generally an Android equivalent that you can run, or indeed the same program available for Android that you can run on your Chromebooks and other Chrome OS or Android devices. So hopefully that's a bit clearer, probably clear as mud, but we just wanted to kind of differentiate out from those three things when we were sharing with you about this. So
I think if you have questions, this is probably the time to ask it in the chat. Not only are we looking at it, Chris, but there's other people that are from Google that are in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jim, I think we said that we were going to have a look at G Suite, some of the G Suite things that we haven't done yet. So we've done lots on Google Classroom. We've got a webinar coming up on forms, docs and sheets and slides. We've done tons on that. Google Sites, we've got a webinar about assessment where we're going to explore Google Sites. But there are two which sit there, which we haven't really done a lot with. And one of them is Jamboard, and one of them is Google Keep. So Georgia, who is our amazing colleague / genie, who is in the background switching screens, what we're going to do is, between Jim and I, we're going to look at Jamboard, a quick example of a Jamboard. So if I just come out and if you can keep my screen on just for a minute, Georgia, what I want us to have a look at, and I'm going to jump onto Jim's in a second, is because I'm using my Chromebook, is I obviously have Chrome browser here and lots of stuff open, but I also have a bunch of apps. So what I'm going to do is actually open the Jamboard app. And the reason I want to open the Jamboard app is it does have slightly different functionality to the Jamboard browser edition, which you can use through a browser. Because all of the new Chromebooks, or not new now, they've been around for a couple of years, because of the Chromebooks being touchscreen, obviously you can interact with them, but you can also do this with a mouse or a stylus on a different device. I do have a bunch of features. It is really a collaborative whiteboard. So I don't know, Jim, do you want to jump in there? Oh, he's already there.
I'm there.
He's there. So Jim and I, and the nice thing about this is it's one of those features. So you can see Jim's kind of moving the flag around and things. It's one of those beautiful collaborative spaces. So we can have a whiteboard space, which is collaborative. If I just show you my menu, you'll see that I've got different pens, different colors. I've also got the capacity to put in some assistive drawing tools. And the different assistive drawing tools are, for example, if I choose this one, this gives me handwriting text to printed text. So if I then go hello, by magic, it will turn that into a text box for me. There is another assisted one which is about shapes. So if I draw a beautiful circle, it'll make it into a beautiful circle. And my favorite one, Jim, is the auto draw. And auto draw is using machine learning. So if I start to draw a little cat's face, because I'm such a good artist, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, it's actually trying. Oh, it's already guessed cat. My goodness. It's trying to guess what I'm drawing. It gives me all of these options along the bottom. And when I select the one that I am drawing, click on that, and it makes it into an actual picture of a cat. So it's a really nice, and I can obviously do freehand drawing and coloring in and all those kinds of things as well. Jim, do you just want to explain what the activity you've got up on the Jamboard is?
Yeah, this is one of those you could just build on your own, especially if you're working with students one-to-one, and you can push this out in Google Classroom. You can just share this by going up in the top right-hand corner on my screen. I'm on the Chromebook now, but if I click on share, I can just share this with an individual student, and maybe just work with them on just their phonics. Is that the right word? Phonics?
Yeah.
And just be able to drag and drop. So as somebody who's working in this space, I can just use this grab tool and move the cat to whatever one. Is it short A or is it long A? And really just work with the students on that. And then in addition to that, Chris, what I love about this Jamboard is that you can actually add multiple frames. So if you could just move over to the next frame, and you can practice your lettering, so just being able to go into here and just getting kids either using the app that Chris is using or using the trackpad, which I think is not as easy, but that's my version of a B coming up here, and now that I put that out there, I'm a bit embarrassed by that.
I'm embarrassed for you.
So even at the start of this, we're not even just 15 minutes in, and then I love it because then we can go even add another board. If you just move it over to one more, we can insert pictures in there and really just be able to go around and talk about the parts of an insect or parts of an animal or identifying parts of a plant or whatever it might be. So just working with our students on that. Either one-to-one or as a group, however you design this Jamboard to work. And it's also a great place for kids to illustrate their learning. You could certainly have kids do work on math problems in here and then maybe record their screen and just talk through that process, recording their voice and talking through the process of just showcasing their understanding.
Absolutely. And the app will work on any device, any device that will run Android, but there is also an iOS version of this app as well, so you can use that to collaborate. And I thought I'd just show this is I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is not a Staedtler pencil. This is in fact a Staedtler stylus. So Staedtler, who you will know make all of these amazing pencils, are actually creating these styluses, which are kind of weighted exactly like a pencil. So it's a nice kind of, it was just on my desk, so I thought I'd mention it. It was a nice kind of addition to be able to use those styluses as well. So if you want some touch,
those for free for you to mention that, I feel like that was a commercial.
And please go on. I wish. I don't know how people do that, like on the YouTube and Instagram channels, they get free stuff. No one has ever given me anything free.
I know.
All right, Jim. So we're gonna
your address is up on the screen now, and
send us chocolates or whatever, anything. The next G Suite additional piece that we're going to have a quick look at is actually Google Keep. And so you will notice that whenever you're in slides or sheets or docs, is this little kind of sidebar will appear. And it's sometimes hidden, by the way. So sometimes you'll just see this little arrow on the side. And if you hit that to show the side panel, it shows this sidebar. And what that gives you access to are a few different things. And one of them is Keep. Now, I have realized that I am logged into my account, which may well have my shopping lists in it, but that's okay. What I've got in my Keep, it really is just a way to grab notes and Jim's going to show us something later on, but you'll notice I actually have a bunch of really excellent websites and Twitter links and stuff that I've grabbed, and I've done that using the Save to Keep extension. But Google Keep is just note keeping. I use it a lot on my mobile device, because if I'm going shopping, for example, I will have a collaborative note between me and my wife, and we'll say we need to buy all these things, and then we go away and we do our shopping. But it's just a note keeping space, which lots of people don't use or don't know it's there. But once you start keeping some notes in here, there's some really interesting stuff. So what you'll see is I've actually created, if I show you this note, I've just been working with my friend Rosie Brooks, who is an amazing, this is a plug by the way, who is an amazing illustrator of children's books. Rosie and I used to live together at university, and she's this incredibly talented illustrator, and she's drawn me lots of these beautiful pictures and paintings that I use in my work. But I've made a badge around empathy. So this comes from the personal social capability, social awareness within the Australian curriculum. But I've also made a couple of badges around things like reasoning, and that comes from the critical and creative thinking substrand of the Victorian curriculum. And I've got questions, which comes from the same substrand. And I've got things like possibilities and metacognition. So I've made a bunch of these badges, and all I've done is inserted them into Keep. And importantly, what I've done is in Keep, you can also add labels. And what I've done is, I'll just change the labels, but what I've done is I've created a critical thinking label, and then I've created a digital badges label. Now that's important because I want to be able to find these badges really easily. So what I'm going to do is I'll just show you in slides, but this works equally in docs as well, is once my little sidebar has popped up here on the right-hand side, I can click on Keep, and it's going to open up all of my Keep notes. So it's all, as everything in G Suite, it's beautifully synchronized. So it opens up all of my Keep notes. Now, if I actually wanted to search for one, I could just scroll down because they're all there. But if I wanted to search for one in particular, obviously it'll search all the text and it'll search the labels. So if I start to type in digital badges, it's brought up all of my digital badges. Now, the beautiful thing is, let's imagine that Jim's done this work here, and Jim, that is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really impressed with your reasoning. Because I can grab that badge and I can just drop it onto here, resize it.
Nailed it.
And I can give Jim a little sticker. Who does not love stickers, right? So in terms of formative assessment, in terms of feedback, creating these badges and actually and then giving them to the kids in that digital format is wonderful. And one of the things that Jim and I have done is which you've seen in other webinars, is to create those kind of portfolios for kids in Google Slides. And one of the pages in there can be your badges. So we help kids to collect. And this isn't really like micro-credentialing or open badging. It's a little bit kind of the low-tech version of it. But it's a really powerful way for us to use Google Keep to be able to give these badges to kids. And the other beautiful thing about it as well, if I just jump back into Keep, is that I can, as I said, add a collaborator under this badge. So what I can do is add in Jim at deploy, and there he is, Jim at deploylearning.com. Save that, and now that is in Jim's Keep as well. So if Jim wants to go in and use, so with my colleagues, I can share these badges, so you don't all have to make your own. We can share the badges, and then anyone can access them and use them to celebrate learning, because that's what we are all about.
You know, Chris, there's so much in that Google Keep that we could do almost a whole show on it. You were talking about just making your grocery list, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if you just did a list of things that you needed to do as soon as you got to school. You can actually set your Google Keep to notify you when you arrive at school, and you'll get a notification. Of course, if you're using the app on your phone, you'll get a notification on your phone, and it's and I use it a lot when I get near the store. My phone will just ping, just let me know that, hey, by the way, if you're going, you might as well go in.
So
I should say
the notification little bell. That's what Jim's talking about. So there's a notification bell, and then pick a place or pick a time and date when you want a notification, right?
It's really cool. It's and there's so much in there, especially with like voice typing. So you can actually use that to do voice typing. It'll convert your voice into text while leaving the recording of your voice there too. So really great feature for students in the classroom as well.
All right, Jim. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to, and I think maybe I'll pull up the screen, and then Giorgio, you can switch across in a second. But what we're going to do is Jim's going to take us through a bunch of things around first of all, the Chrome browser. So the Chrome browser is available on any device. When we talk about Chrome OS or Chrome operating system, that's only available on. Sorry, my wife just walked in with a cup of tea for me. Thank you. And then she ran back out when she saw I was talking. So Chrome OS is only available on Chromebooks and Chrome devices, but Chrome is available everywhere. So I'm going to shut up now and let Jim do some demonstration of how powerful Chrome is as a browser.
Chris, can I just say that every time I hear that squeaky door, I know you're getting a treat.
I need to oil the door, right? I need to oil the door.
You know that we've been working together for quite a bit these last few weeks. That even like the squeaky door, I'm like, what do we get?
She is amazing. She brings in a lot of treats and like cups of tea and stuff.
I love it. Thanks, Chris, and thanks for sharing my screen. Now, I just want to walk you guys through some great features of what we're using, or how to just use the Chrome browser, right? And we're going to talk a lot about that today. But the real focus for today is really about the Omnibox, and that's this box up here. When you go to search things from Google, you can actually type. Most of us go to google.com, and then you use this box here in the center to search. And you don't really have to do that. You can really just search in the Chrome browser directly from the where you would put a web address, which we call the Omnibox. And really to get us started, Chris, one of the things that I always find when I'm working is that I always want the same windows open. And I just want to start, before we do any searching, I just want to start really quickly by, I have these tabs that are open right now. If you come up to one of these tabs and you right click it, you can actually choose pin. And I love to pin my tabs because it literally just gives you the what's it called, the favicon, like the little image that represents that website in the corner, and I don't have to have it be a large tab. And what's nice about that is it remembers that tab is always going to be there. So it just pops back up when I'm ready, and it also keeps me from closing it. You have to actually right click and close the tab. So some of those things that I'm always using, like my Gmail, my calendar, and other things, I always pin to the browser. So, but when we talk about the Omnibox, when we talk about, so let me say this before we talk about more of the Omnibox, we talk about the browser itself. One of the things about the browser that I think can be very good for us is that you can see over here I'm signed into a test account, and then when I'm clicking on that, I actually can go into I should say this, a lot of us sign in with other accounts, right? And so we use that for other accounts. And there's things we can do in our Chromebook so we can switch between our Gmail that we use at home, or maybe a student account that we use to kind of see if everything's working, and then our work account. And one of the things I always want to just tell people is if you ever want to use your work account, actually just use an incognito browser, right? And so I'll just see if I can show that to you here. It's like I have an incognito browser just off screen that I've actually signed into my work account with. And that way my work account can live off to the side, and I can get in there whenever I need to. And it just it stops the issue of having multiple accounts inside of that one browser. I wonder how well you understood all that, but I think a lot of times when we have signed into multiple accounts in the one browser, it can get very confused, and we can become confused, like what account am I using? So I always recommend just use one browser window for one account, and if you need to have another one and you're using a Chromebook, just use an incognito browser.
And 90% of the time when I've had issues, people saying, "Oh, this isn't right," or "I can't find this thing," it's exactly that. Is they logged into the wrong account in their Chrome browser.
That's right. It's just good practice just to sign into one account with that. And if you have a second account, use the incognito browser, and then that's the best thing to do, especially when you're on a Chromebook, right? Okay, so now let me talk to you about the Omnibox. That's this box up here on the top. And the one thing about the Omnibox is we really want to be able to mention to you is that you can use it to search, but you don't just have to put search terms. You can put something really kind of fun like this in here. Like, for example, I can type in the weather, just type the word weather. And when I hit return, I don't even have to really hit return, you get this information, you get this box, this knowledge box of what's happening. And I love this box because it does not only tells you the weather, but it can tell you the weather over time. And then it also gives you an opportunity to switch back and forth between Fahrenheit and Celsius. Great for me as an American. I never know what the temperature is, but so I get to switch it here. But it's great for kids learning how to convert. So using this as a conversion, opportunity to practice and teach conversions. And so that weather piece can be really powerful when I just do that, because I can literally just type weather, Paris, and then go from there and then wonder, okay, it's almost the same. What's the difference? What time of year is it? What do we understand what it means to have hemispheres? That sort of thing. So weather followed by any place is it will bring you the weather in that place, or just weather in general. Just it'll most likely know where you are, and be able to do that. So we talk about that type of conversion, so Celsius to Fahrenheit. I could say 16F to C. So let's do it the other way around. Let's say 16C to F. And then now I know that's Fahrenheit. And so once you get into this box, you can actually play around with these. Look at there's other options here. So Kelvin is added in here. And then look at down here. Here's the formula. So here is how Google, the machine, did that formula, which is great for us to practice that kind of thing. You can do the same thing. I often, when I go to get petrol, which I call gas, it's like, oh, it's 16 liters. And I'm like, I don't even know what a liter is. And then I just go to gallons. And then now 16L to gallons will tell us. And it's such an easy way. And then, of course, down here, this is how we do the maths on that, right?
And Jim, if you just click on where it says volume there, it then brings up all of the incredible number of conversion pieces like pressure and speed. And it's really great for units of measurement and looking at, okay, what's a unit of measurement in volume? What are the units of measurement in energy or in frequency? So it's an incredibly powerful thing, which I think just people don't always see, or maybe they see the weather thing and think, oh, well, that's nice, but how can I go a bit further with that and really build learning into it?
Yeah, it's such a cool feature, and that you can really come up with a whole bunch of different things, like cups to ounces or whatever it might be, or ounces to cups because you've got a great recipe online that you found or something like that. And obviously that can work in a classroom, especially when you're cooking in your classroom when the kids aren't there. You just have that little stove underneath your desk, like I. So that's great. Let me mention a couple other things here, because I can also type in something like earthquake, and when I type in earthquake, it gives me the most recent earthquakes around the planet. And this is really, really great when you hear about earthquakes. But then you can also start to take these earthquakes and use something like MyMaps or just maps in general, and start plotting those earthquakes and make assumptions, or have it outline the fault lines around the planet, right? When we talk about plate tectonics. And so that earthquakes can be really a great one and a fun one. Not when you're in an earthquake, but fun to use when you're trying to illustrate what an earthquake is in your earth science classes, right?
And just a quick plug, Jim, is that on the 28th of May, we're doing another webinar for you guys, Beyond the Physical Walls, so exploring the world with Google Tools. And we're going to have a little bit of a deeper look into Google Maps and MyMaps and Earth and all kinds of wonderful things.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. Let me talk about this other one here, Chris, because I think this is the one I use almost every day. It's just define. We just use the define word. So when I put define and then a new word, let's just say, for example, is right. So if I just type in define aesthetic, I get knowledge box that tells us about the word aesthetic. And here,
aesthetic.
Oh, that was nice. There you go, aesthetic. And then we can click on this learn to pronounce. You can actually have the option of making it lower. What am I trying to say? Lower, slower, and then be able to really be able to enunciate that. Okay. And then I may have clicked the wrong button up there. There we go. And then as you go through, you can see not only, is it an adjective or is it a noun, but then you can click on this to go even further. What are the synonyms for it? What other things can we be looking for? one of my favorites, Chris, and I think you mentioned this to me today. I love to define a skew, right? What does a skew mean? Do you wonder? And so when you did it work for you? It didn't work.
Now, so you have defined a skew, which is excellent, meaning not in a straight level or position. Now, if you just do a search in the Omnibox for askew, then you will find a Google Easter egg in there. So the word askew, and when it comes back, you will notice that very irritatingly, the box is just slightly askew. And there are a bunch of those Easter eggs in there. So if you ever want to have a look through, look at Google Chrome Easter eggs, there are absolutely tons of them. You can actually play Tetris.
You have to use the Omnibox for that, don't you?
Yeah.
The other one I think is great is when you can type in here and you type in translate. And so especially if we're working with our second language learners or people who are learning English as a second language, and we can go in here and just maybe type translate and then maybe the word merci, and then I get this cool translation feature. But I love this piece here.
Merci.
Oh. So being able to, if I've read the word or if I found the word online or something like that, I'm just trying to find out how do I say that, then you can type that in. And then, of course, you can drop this down and change the language and start learning different languages that way, just using the opposite, so going from English to another language. That translation, translate.google.com does that. But here from the Omnibox, we're able to easily find that merci. And then let me show you a couple other ones. Is that okay?
Yeah, I want to know about. Are you going to tell me about Pablo Picasso by any chance?
I am about to do that. Yeah, this is.
I love this.
So when I type in something like Pablo Picasso or really any historical figure or person of infamous perhaps, but more prominent, I guess, and I hit return, that gives me the knowledge box on the right. Do you see it over there on the right? You get this knowledge box. Now, obviously, it most of the time will pull something from Wikipedia, some information about Wikipedia. But as I scroll down, I get this artworks. And so this is cool when I just click on one of them, like Guernica, his famous painting there in Spain. And now when I click on Guernica, I have a carousel of other paintings from Pablo Picasso. But one of the things, and I love, you can click on those and explore all those as you wish. But one of the things I really love about this is if I was working with students, and let's just say we'll keep with this art theme, and I said, hey, I want you to find an artist, and I want you to dig into that, show me some artwork, or maybe write something up about them, or create a slideshow presentation, whatever it might be. As I scroll down, it says people also searched for, and when I click on somebody like Van Gogh, I get this cool carousel of people that are related to Picasso with art. Now, you can see some are maybe here's his daughter, and I'm not sure if she's an artist or not, but the majority of other people are artists. And so I may go, oh, I think Picasso's cool, but who's this Wassily Kandinsky guy? And I just butchered that, I think. But I
think you did a really good job. I was just about to say how good that was.
I just mumbled through it, I think. And so I love this because this is how you get kids to explore artists that you didn't really maybe know about, or that just building an inquiry in your classroom. So that's the knowledge box, and you can really go far with the knowledge box, right? Just building out on that.
And while we're doing this webinar for teachers, I think what we probably didn't mention and should have mentioned right at the start is that although you should have these skills, like you should be able to do this, these are the type of skills and use of Chrome and that we want students to have. We want students to be able to really use the internet, and rather than going to like search of Vincent van Gogh, go to the first website that's there, click on that, Control-C, Control-V, I'm done. It's like teaching kids to use those research skills to really dive much more deeply into this.
I agree, and these are those digital literacy skills that we need to have, right? Be able to really find. I always say that Google's a search engine, but it's really about finding, right? So let's go back. Let's just kind of keep moving here. Let's just use this. Let's just use this Picasso piece as something that is another leaping off point. So obviously the knowledge box is there, but let's say I really want to find out if maybe something happened around Picasso's art piece. And I want to mention to you that, I use the Omnibox to search, but you can see this is the search results. I can come over here to tools. And when I drop in tools, I can come over here to anytime
and I can search within the last month or weeks or something. So if I was doing any searching around COVID-19, for example, I probably don't want search results that are 3 months old. I probably want search results that are within the last 24 hours or the last week. And because so much has changed. This is obviously a really fast moving topic. So how do I make sure that the information I'm getting is up to speed, up to date, I should say. I also like this because I can go down to custom range and I can go and try to find how that search query relates to time. So I can dig back and see how it matches up. And usually, whatever, I don't know how Google finds their stuff, but
magic. It's magic, Jim.
It uses magic to be able to find things for you. So I think that's an important thing to understand. So using that toolbox, don't be afraid of it. It's in there. And then, many of you probably know how to use these other things. So using that, going on that same topic, I'm going to use this Omnibox to go ahead and talk. Let's do a search for trapezoid, right? So I'm going to do a search for trapezoid. Obviously, you get tons of results with trapezoids and videos and all sorts of stuff. But I can go in here to images. And when I click on images, you can see here there's lots of examples of trapezoids. But I think the thing I want you to be able to notice, and this is sort of a relatively new feature, is up here you see these bubbles. And when I move over these bubbles, there's actually one here called real life. And I stole this from a guy I saw do this, guy named John Carippo, who works out of the U.S. You click on real life, and now you have trapezoids in real life. Now we all know how important that can be when we talk about how do we find these concepts, especially math concepts in real life. That's a button I clicked. And what's kind of cool is that when I click on real life and geometry or something, or real life in daily life, or real life in green, I'm afraid to click that, but I'm going to do it anyways. They sort of collect, right? So now I have real life green trapezoids. I'm not really sure how well that worked, but you get the idea. You can combine those bubbles to find things. And so anyways, that's one of my favorites. And so and then before I jump off of this, I just want to share, like, for example, if I did something just did a search for dogs, right? Many of us, I know this is where you got to keep it safe.
Oh, it's cute.
Right. Let's just stay here for the next 5 minutes. And so, but the idea here I want to share with you is that when you go into tools, remember that button again? When I go into tools this time, that it's contextual. Those tools are contextual, so they change every time you're doing a different type of search. Now I can go in here in images and choose size, and I can choose large, because we all know that when you use a small image in a slideshow, then what ends up happening is that and you stretch it out on your slide, it becomes really blurry, or we call pixelated. So I can come in here, tools, size, large, and then I can use any of these. Now, I know if you're a librarian out there in the audience, you're screaming at the screen right now saying, you're not allowed to use those, Jim, because they're not royalty free. So that's what this little button here is, usage rights. I can click on usage rights and say labeled for reuse with modification if I wanted to change anything about it. But otherwise, I could just use labeled for non-commercial reuse. That's where we can live as teachers in that space. So now I've got large pictures of dogs that I can use without any issues. That's great. Those all really work well. Or I can even go here under color, choose transparent, but that's when I would go into type and choose clip art. And I might take out the large thing here. And so I have clip art, so you can see dogs that are in clip art. I don't know, I may have clicked on one by accident. And then I can come over here, color transparent. In most cases, that means the background is going to be transparent. And that's where I can use that in my slideshow. So image searching can be really, really powerful inside of Chrome. Now, we talked, I think, before when we look for images inside of Google Drive or Google Docs, where we can search for those. Okay. Let me see. What else do I want? Let's just move on from there. That should get you started. I would recommend you should click on some of these things and see what's happening. I can't help myself. I want to show line drawing. You know, when we talk about dogs and line drawings, let's just say not worry about the reuse. line drawings and dogs allows us to do what? Color, right? So we can actually print those out and color them and use those as an activity in our class. I don't know if anybody's still printing out stuff and coloring, but it's an activity that I think is perfect for this time of year. Okay, so let's move on just really quickly because I know I'm sort of going a little bit long. I want to share some of my other favorite features. One of them is books. So books.google.com, books.google.com. Back in the when I was in the classroom, I worked with students on using. I was a film teacher, so I taught kids how to make movies. I'm from California. That's what we all did. And what we did is my students used to read Shakespeare sonnets and then go out and interpret a Shakespeare sonnet and then go ahead and make a movie about it. Right? It was fun. Year 9, it was a great activity. Kids, they hate Shakespeare and then they end up loving it. I apologize to anybody who loves and teaches Shakespeare. That was probably insulting. But I wanted to say that you can go in here and type in sonnets, and because Shakespeare wrote those sonnets 400 years ago, most of the sonnets that are in here, I think is it 400? It's 400. Most of these sonnets that are in here are available for you the entire book. So you can actually go in. So you can see here it's preview. But if you search long enough, you'll see it doesn't say preview. It'll actually say the whole book. And I do that. I meant to practice that before I showed it to you so you could have one. But preview means the book is only available. There's like a few that are available, which is kind of works for me here because I don't need all those sonnets. I just need a few. So if I clicked on this book here, you would get pages of sonnets that are available. And over here on the right, you see these blue lines. That just means that there's a gap in what's available. So I can maybe scroll down to that space without a blue line. And then here, I would have whatever this book talks about sonnets, right? So it's one of my favorite things to do is be able to use books for that. And you can also just end up with books and then grab sections out of it. Sometimes you get full chapters, so you can just really read a chapter to help reinforce your research. And that can be great. So when you're talking about research, I want to introduce you to another thing called scholar.google.com. I feel like I'm talking 1 million kilometers per minute, but
I'll convert that for you into miles.
Okay.
Using the conversion table.
I did that conversion in my head. So Google Scholar is a really great feature because you can actually search scholarly articles. So, and then find out, let's just say, I have no idea. So I'm just going to type in COVID-19. That's probably not the right thing. Let's just type in the flu. And so here's severity of pandemic, H1N1 influenza in the United States. And I can see here that it's been cited 326 times. And then I can actually go in here and find out and get the citation for that. And then I can also look at all 25 versions of this article. And this you can see up here, this is HTML. This is a citation. Sometimes you get PDFs. Here's a whole book on things. And so this is where especially for our secondary students who are really trying to dig in on a particular topic and a subject. This can be a really powerful place to go. And of course, you can start favoriting them by, if you're just doing a quick research, going, oh, I'll look at this one later. I can look at this one later. You just hit that star button. And then over here under my library, you'll have access to those later. So this is great for students who maybe go, I read it somewhere, but I can't remember where I've read it. It's here. You can just start and remember it. Okay. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, and we don't have time for all of it, but there's some really great things for you to be able to dig into. Those of you especially who are working on research and are at least teaching your students how to do that.
And Jim, I think one that I forgot that we didn't mention, but maybe it's worth mentioning is news.google.com / newspapers.
Yeah. So here's news.google.com, and I love this because you can actually set up searches for this, Chris. So you can actually set up a search that says, hey, anytime this and this particular topics appear in the news together, I want to see it. And it's really cool, especially for kids who are planning out their research and they're really trying to find out. But and I think, Chris, you had mentioned in there that you add newspapers at the end of that, news.google.com / newspapers. And here are newspapers from around the world. And note
the Age is there. So we've got the Melbourne newspaper on the left-hand side.
And but also I love it because you'll find newspapers in other languages. So if you're a second language, if you're another language, you're a language teacher, this is a great way for your students to actually read articles in another language and interpret those.
I think if you just click on the age really quickly, Jim, it actually also goes back to the original October the 17th, 1854. So
cool.
Actually being able to historically look back at the age and, looking at how newspapers have changed, how writing has changed, but also some of those news stories. So an incredible resource, which is sometimes just hidden away and people don't know about it until it is pointed out to them.
This is fun. I'm actually tempted to stop what I'm doing and just look at this. Can you take
read the news? Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
So let me just share one last one, and then I'm done for a couple minutes. If I type in trends, trends.google.com, it can be really cool, and it's a special request for Kimberly. She loves this thing too. You go into here and you can look at trends. I would caution you potentially not to click on the Taylor Swift and Kim Kardashian trends, but now that I mention it, most of you are doing that right now. I would probably go up here and just sort of change my country just to make sure that works. And there it is down there. Boom. And then I can come in still Taylor Swift. But if I go in here and I can actually type in something like, how about the flu? We just talk about the flu again. And as if we're not talking about it enough. Probably influenza, but you can see here that as we look through the flu, boom, we nailed it over here. It's huge over here. But look, there's some bumps down the way back in over time, and we can actually change that from the 12 months to the past 5 years, and then we can look at these blips in here and go, okay, what happened at this time that caused this blip? What are some of these jumps that we see? And we can actually dig into the trends or how it's been accessed online. This is a really cool place for data collection. So if I was looking at your interest by subregion, and then I came over here and I can download, I actually never downloaded that. I can download a CSV file. And then what I love about this, Chris, is when we talk about the geo stuff, is that CSV file with place-based data can be mapped. So, which
I'm excited for that webinar. So that's the 28th of May.
That's right. So I feel like I've talked too much, and I think it's time we wrap up the end of the move towards the end of the show, talking about extensions.
Absolutely. So, Jeannie, Georgia, if you don't mind flipping across to my demo screen, that would be awesome. So while we're just waiting for that to happen, just a quick reminder that an extension is a tiny little program which sits up on your Chrome browser window up here. I have a gazillion extensions, and just the extension to rule them all, which I might tell you about in a second, is Extensity. But the way you get an extension is via the Chrome Web Store. So the Chrome Web Store has a bunch of these extensions, and the ones we're going to find and show you, you can find in the Chrome Web Store. Or if, for example, we're going to show you something called Screencastify, we're not going to show you much about how it works because we're doing a whole webinar on it. But if I did Screencastify extension, then that'll come up and it'll search for it, and I'll see it's at the Chrome Web Store, and I click on there. And all I need to do to add an extension to my Chrome browser is to click on here. Now, obviously, I already have this installed, but this will say Add to Chrome. And then if I want to ever remove it from Chrome, I can click here and remove from Chrome. So what happens is I get these little favicons which appear up on the top right-hand side of my Chrome bar. Now, the beauty of this is because of Chrome and G Suite and being logged into my Google domain, is whatever device I open up Chrome on and I log in with, my extensions follow me. So they're not based on the computer; they're based in the cloud. So there are a couple of different extensions I'm going to show you, and I think Jim's going to show you a couple as well. The first one is this one here called One Click Timer. Now, as we know, teachers are liars. Teachers will say you've got 5 minutes to do a task, and then 37 minutes later, they'll say, come on, you've only got 30 seconds left to finish it. I am the worst at that, by the way. So what I love about One Click Timer is that I can set a timer, literally with a click. Say I want to set a 5-minute timer. And what happens is, I'll set a 1-minute timer. What happens is it will play you a beautiful, like yoga bells, bing, bong, binging at the end of the time. And if I wanted to, if, for example, I had kids maybe in a synchronous lesson, or indeed when we do get them back face-to-face, and I know some of you already have that, is I can either leave it sitting up in my Chrome browser and do other things, and I can still ticking away. I can click on it and see a kind of medium-sized clock here and see how long is left. Or I can click on this and it'll open it up in a tab. So I might actually have that sitting up there in full screen so that kids can see how much time is left. So I'm just going to reset the timer because I'm not actually going to use that. And you'll see that it pins up here as a timer on the left-hand side. So one-click timer is a really good kind of classroom management and time management extension. Another extension that I'm just going to show you really quickly is a new one to me, and it's a relatively new extension, is this one called Mote, M-O-T-E. A couple of things around Mote. One of them is, if I just actually jump into this slide deck again, just as a kind of demo, is that if I want to use my extension and I want to leave a comment for a student. Now, we've done a lot of work on this already when we've been talking about I'll just make it a bit smaller so you can see. When we've been talking about how we can leave formative comments, if I want to go and insert a comment here, because I have Mote, the extension Mote installed, you'll see I have a little purple, well, I must have signed out of it. I had a little purple, oh, I thought I was signed in. Maybe I was, my bad. I'm just going to type my password in so everyone can see it now. That's because that's really good practice. I can see I've got my Mote. Got it. Oh, you know why? Because I'm using a different computer. That's why. But now that I'm signed in, I'm there and ready to go. You can see that if I have got my insert comment, I get this purple button here. And if I click on that purple button, what it's going to do is it's actually going to leave an audio comment. Now, I know a couple of weeks ago in one of our webinars, someone asked about leaving audio comments. So this is our solution, which seems to work really well. But I'm just leaning to talk into a different computer, sorry. So, oh, got it, that's fine. So start recording. So this is excellent work, Jim. I'm really impressed by what you've done here. I think you've spelt extensions well. What I'd love you to focus on is maybe the font size, because no one can read that at the moment. So I click on done, and two things happen. What you'll see is that because I have Mote installed, when I click comment, what I love about this is that it actually puts the audio player in embedded, and it does a transcript of the actual text. So it's like magic. Now, for students, if they don't have this extension, what it will do is give them a link, and that link will take them to a site which then they can play the audio on, which I think isn't as good. So if you're going to look at using this, it's really great to be able to install the extensions for students. Now, if you're using managed Chromebooks, if you've actually got Chromebooks where you manage them, you can do that by clicking on a button and sharing that extension out automatically into all of the students' accounts. So Mote is a really lovely way to capture those audio notes. And Jim, if actually, in fact, no, this is going to hopefully be magical. I hope this works magically. And Georgia, it's going to need a quick flick, because what we're going to use is another really great extension, which I have just feel like I've turned off. Extensity, which is this one up here, is a good opportunity to show you this. This is all of the extensions I actually have installed, but because I don't want them all running and it just takes up too much space, Extensity allows you to turn them on and off with just a click. And what I've just turned on is Share to Classroom. Now, the beautiful thing about Share to Classroom is that if, for example, I was at theedge.com, have I spelled that right? Have I spelled age right? I'm at theedge.com, and no, I haven't. Theedge.com, is it .com.au? No, oh yeah, maybe it is. .au. If I'm on a website and I want to get that website to students, obviously in the good old days, I would like write the URL up on the board, and then they would copy it down and type it into their browsers. But I can use Share to Classroom here, this little extension, because my students are in my classroom. And this is amazing for distance learning, distance education, is I am going to magically click on Share to Classroom. Now, the students have to have the extension installed as well, so that's something to think about. It's going to load up all of my classes. and say I'm going to go on to distance learning, which is the class that Jim and I share. And what I'm going to do is actually use the magic to push this to students. So what that means is that I'm going to send this into students and actually open it up on their browser. I could immediately create an assignment or ask a question or make an announcement, which we've covered in the Google Classroom webinars. But if I push this, what's going to happen is magically, Georgia, if you can switch across to Jim's screen, we're hoping this will work.
What am I doing?
Are you on your deploy account?
I missed it.
So what happened there magically is what we missed. That's okay. Is that it actually pushes and will open up into on Jim's deploy account there. So or the kids who are in the classroom, it will actually open up on their machine. So being able to share URLs that way is really, really fabulous.
Yeah,
Jim, am I gonna?
Sorry.
No, go on. I was going to say, are you going to do iDropper?
I am.
And then Kimberly's going to jump on, right, and help us with the last couple of extensions.
That's right. And it's if you, I love it. If you what I think that pushing to Google Classroom is one of my favorites. But I also think that there's a great one out there called iDropper. iDropper is where you can grab colors from different places. So while Chris was talking, I was over here just exploring the Google Arts and Culture project. And what I love about this is, I know it's like if you know me, you know this whole thing takes me away from everything that's possible. So if I go into this Vermeer beautiful painting, and I can go in and I'm like, oh, I love this blue. You know, this blue Vermeer uses, it actually comes from a semi-precious stone in Afghanistan. And so he crushed them up and used this blue. And it's he's known for this blue. Well, I want to capture that blue because I might want to use that blue in maybe in my own projects. And so I can click on here and then choose pick. So this is the iDropper extension. I choose iDropper, pick a color from a page, and then you can maybe, I don't know how well you can see it, but my cursor has a little box next to it, and that box is showing me the color. So I grab that color right there, and now in my iDropper extension, the color is up here. I love it. It says steel blue, but so these colors are represented on the web, and so the one color I want is this top one. Chris, you know what that's called?
Is that the hex code, Jim?
Right. It's the hex code. And what's great about grabbing the hex code out of a color from something like a beautiful painting is I can come in here and then go into my Google Slides, and I want that color to put in here. And so I go into Google Slides, and then here's the opportunity to change the text color. So I click on that, and then way down here that no one ever uses is the custom toolbar, right? The custom bot. So when I click on that and I paste the hex color I just stole from Vermeer, he's long dead, so don't worry about it. He's not going to be upset about it. And then I click OK. Now I'm able to change the color in my background, in my my artwork, or in my slides. And so let's just do something else. I can just go in here and grab that yellow, because the yellow is also something very famous, right? So I pick a color from a page. I'm just going to assume this is that famous yellow. Now I've got the color here. I can go and I can grab that. So imagine doing this with your school, like your logo or any school colors and things like that. And I'm going to go into here, and then I'm going to go into background. I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to come down here to custom. Let me see if I get that to work for me. There we go. And I'm going to paste that color. So now, now I'm really doing some cool stuff, right? So I'm using Vermeer as my my palette, my color palette, and then I'm bringing that into my slide deck, and maybe I'm doing a slide presentation on Vermeer. So, anyways, I love that. It's one of my favorites. I think Kimberly can maybe come in and show us a little bit about text helps read and write. So, Kimberly, are you there? Oh,
just while Kimberly's jumping in, there's a quick question from Heather. Hello, Heather. We love Heather. She hangs out with us. She's awesome. How does Mote compare to Talk and Comment? Because Talk and Comment doesn't require students to have the extension. So same, like they're very similar. The kids don't need the extension to use Talk and Comment. To use Mote. It'll give them the link. They need the extension if they want the embedded player within a comment. That's the only difference. But essentially the same. The same. And thank you for joining us, Heather. We love you, and thanks for being here. Riley's here as well. There are loads of our friends who have come in to see us again.
Everybody's
Kimberly.
a friend of ours, Chris.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. And if you've joined us previously, you'll know that exactly every time I join this webinar, my neighbor uses their blower, which is happening again right now. So I have plugged in my headphones, and hopefully that helps with the sound. So I am going to share a couple of my favorite Chrome extensions to finish off the Chrome extensions section. So Georgia, if you can bring up my screen. The first one that I want to talk about is like my favorite Chrome extension of all time, which is Read and Write for Google Chrome. It is available through the Chrome Web Store. You can just search. I don't remember the web address for anything. I'm super impressed, Jim and Chris, that you know addresses for things, because I just literally Google everything. But I want to show you some of the really cool things that Read and Write does. And so this works really well inside G Suite products, so inside Docs, inside Slides, but it also works really well on the web. So I'm going to jump over to a Wikipedia article here, and I looked up a really topical thing at the moment, the concept of homeschooling, and we won't get into the politics of whether we're actually homeschooling at home with parents or not anyway, but I wanted to show you some of the functions of Read and Write. So just like Chris mentioned before, my Read and Write extension sits right up at the top next to my Omnibox as the little purple puzzle piece. And when I select that, you'll actually see that it brings up an additional menu bar for me to use. I can move this around the screen if it's in an annoying spot. And same sort of concept happens within Docs or Slides as well. And I want to show you my two favorite features, I think, of this in terms of the current. I always say 2, but then it ends up being like 10, but I'm conscious of not being given too much time, so I will try and keep that. So first things first, which is super, super important, is in a way of ensuring that we are creating equity for our students to be able to access content at home, is that Read and Write is absolutely fabulous for doing text-to-speech. So I can highlight any text on here and press play, and I don't know if my audio from my tab, I don't know if was that coming through the StreamYard?
It's a little bit quiet, but I could hear it.
General concept. So it will read to me, tracks along. I can go into the settings. I can change the speed. I can change the accent. I can change the voice, for male, female, so on and so forth. And it can be really, really impactful for students to be able to actually have text read to them. And you can see I'm just on a website. I can do that on any website anywhere in the world. Another one of my favorite features that is in Read and Write is this ability over here to simplify the page. So if I click on this particular icon, you'll see that it's opened a new tab for me. And this is a simplified version of whatever website I was working on. And this is incredibly powerful for students to be able to just remove some of the distractions that exist on our website. So we know that the entire web is often designed to try and pull our attention to different things, distract us from what we were doing. And so being able to pull out just the main content of the page that we're looking at and remove any ads, any related links, etc., so on and so forth, can be really powerful. And then I can actually still use, you'll see that I have the toolbar on here, so I can actually get this version of the web page to be read to me if I wanted to. And I often have the option as well of simplifying this even further. I can do a whole lot of great accessibility things within here, change the font type. I can change the text to open dyslexic font. I can change the spacing, so on and so forth. So a whole lot of really cool things that I can do within this simplified version of a web page. And if I jump back over onto my original Wikipedia page, I'll just show you one final thing that I love. So I'm just going to go through this website. And remember, I'm just on any web page I could be on. I'm just going to select some words, and I'm going to use the toolbar up here to highlight those words. So remember, I am, as I said, on a live website. If I was doing this in a doc, I could use parts of speech. I could use different themes within a piece of writing, different concepts within some sort of scientific text, whatever it is that you wanted, you could use. You don't have to highlight just one word. I'm doing that right now for purpose of demonstrations, but you could pick paragraphs, sentences. And then once you have a number of things highlighted, there are a couple of really cool functions that you can do with these highlighted words. So one of them is this little circular collect highlights button. And what this will do, if I click on that, this will actually extract anything that I've highlighted from any web page online and pull it into a brand new Google Doc. So it's basically stopping me having to go copy paste back and forth into Docs. And it will actually reference at the bottom of the Google Doc the original source of the information that I have highlighted, so that I can click back into it. So a really great way of collecting and researching online. And then another option with your highlighting is you can actually click on this vocabulary tool here. And what this will do, and this is a really great one, particularly for primary school users, is I just have to give permission on my account, is it will create a new Google Doc for me that will actually have pulled these words out of this web page, and it will create a vocab list for me. So has that jumped to that for you guys now?
Yep, all
Yep.
good.
Perfect. So you can see in my vocab list here, it has the word that I highlighted. It has the dictionary definition of it. It has a symbol, which is a visual representation of the word, which is so amazing for kids because if, we have homophones, homonyms, all those sorts of words that can sometimes confuse kids, I'll actually show them multiple versions of the word. Here you go. There's a good one, parent. Here, and then it also has a space for additional notes in here. So a really simple way of I guess some additional resources and supporting learners of all abilities with this tool. The other one that I want to show is called Equatio. It's also made by the same group. Oops, if I could spell. Is everybody else really good at spelling until they have to spell like publicly? It's like I used to write on the board occasionally as a teacher, and every single thing I'd write would be spelled incorrectly. Okay, so Equatio is maths made digital, and I'm just going to jump in. I'm not going to show a lot about this because my background is as an English teacher, and maths is I'm not great at demonstrating maths sometimes and being vulnerable here. So I just want to show you though, because I had a lot of questions recently from people around how do we do maths online during this time. So Equatio integrates into Docs, and we can actually type in natively our mathematical equations and insert them into Docs. We can pull maths off websites, but I want to show you a form just to show how you can also use Equatio embedded in forms. So if I have the Equatio app installed, it actually will sync into my forms as well. And if I have maths equations inside my forms, which might be traditionally quite difficult to answer in a sort of an online environment, I can click on the little insert maths, and here's my attempt at this. Before I was like, okay, half plus a third. Well, I mean, surely that's 2 over 5, right? No, I know. What is it? Common denominator. Okay, so I can work out 2. I know you're laughing at me, Chris. I can tell it's 2. What is it? 2 over 6? Is that the answer? 3 over 6.
Jim, we're not inviting her back on to help us out ever again.
I should have done. I'm sure I knew the maths answer to this before, and so anybody watching this, please don't judge me for the fact that I just put a wrong answer in here. But you can see how I inserted the maths.
We'll just ask everybody to stay another 5 minutes while we work through Kimberly's maths.
Let's work out the common denominator. So half is blah blah blah. Okay. So that's.
In terms of having worked in a maths and science school, when Equatio came out, the maths teachers and the science teachers were just so delighted because the maths notation is so hard to get into digital online documents, and even harder for kids to then be able to input back in. So the ability with Equatio to input through voice or through handwritten input as well, if you've got a touch screen, my maths and science friends love it. I think this is really amazing.
I will just share that these tools are completely free for teachers as well. Again, I don't remember the web address for anything. We can drop it in the chat though. But if you just Google free for teachers, read and write, you just fill in the form and you get both read and write and Equatio completely for free. They have free and paid versions, but you get the free version, the premium version for free as teachers. All right, and that's me. Oh, sorry. I'm going to hand back over to you guys.
I just signed up for a webinar for them. Yeah, they're doing another thing. I feel like now we should be paid by the pencil people, the textile people, and maybe somebody else. Chris, I think we're at that place where wow.
We're at that place. Do we have the 1 minute slam of Google Classroom app?
Okay.
Yes, Kimberly's nodding. She, as the boss, she's like, yes. So, Georgia, if you don't mind just giving me back my screen, that would be amazing. What I'm going to do is just really quickly show you. You guys know what Classroom looks like in terms of the web interface and the ability to look at it like that. And it's great and it's wonderful. But often as a teacher or as students as well, but as a teacher, I might want to do this on my mobile device, or I might want to do it if I'm using Chromebooks. You can see I've also got the Classroom app. And the advantage of the Classroom app is that it does a couple of little things because it really it buys into the camera and the microphone built into your mobile device. But I'm using it on a Chromebook because Chromebooks can run Android apps. So that's why they're ultimately cool. They're brilliant as a laptop, traditional, but because they're touchscreen and also I can embed apps, I can use them like a tablet. So I've actually got open my my Google Classroom in the app itself. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to have a look at, let's say, I've lost where I had it now. I had an essay open. Let's have a look at week 1 assignments. I'll just jump on this one.
Fine.
Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So actually, you know what I've just done, Jim, is I've done it wrong. I've clicked on the wrong one. I needed that essay that I had open before, but it's okay. I'm doing really well. Write an essay. Phew. There we go. So I can open up this, and this is Alfred Hitchcock's essay. So we've shown you how to do all this stuff in the other webinars. So I'm not going to tell you much about that. But once I open up Alfred Hitchcock's essay, right, brilliant, I can have a read about that, and I'm really excited by it. What I'm going to do is, in fact, give him a little bit of feedback. And so I've read his essay, and rather than, I will remember that, thank you. Rather than actually spending too much time writing him feedback, I want to give him some video feedback. So I've made a new topic, and that topic is, oh, did I not make the topic? I'm doing such a good job of this. That topic is feedback, my feedback. So let me just do that right now. My feedback. And if I create this topic and add it in here, what I'm going to do is use the power of the app. And the power of the app is I'm just going to click on plus, and I'm going to click on material. And what I'm going to do is feedback for Alfred. Now, in the olden days when we were actually with students, we could do some awesome things by actually standing next to them when they've got work and use your mobile phone to do this. But what I'm going to do is click on the attach button up here. And obviously, when you do it in Classroom on the web interface, you've got Drive, link file, all that kind of stuff. But the additional stuff in the app is to record video. And what that lets me do is if I record this video really fast, it's going to open up, and I'm going to say, oh, you've got a different view of my office now. Hey, Alfred, that English essay was fantastic. Well done. I really want you to focus on using some more complex vocabulary, though, to make it even better. Stop recording. And what I'm going to do is, yeah, happy with that. I'm actually going to send that directly to Alfred. So like you've seen us do before, is we're able to click on specific students. So I'm going to send it directly to Alfred. And more importantly, what I'm going to do is select the topic, my feedback. And what's going to happen now is that video is going to go into the my feedback topic on Alfred's classwork page only. So we're actually able to give those really specific, really quick video feedback using the Classroom app on your Chromebook or on your mobile phone, or indeed on other Apple-flavored devices as well. That will work through the Classroom app. That's it.
I love it.
I think one. I know obviously that was a very quick explanation of the Android apps, but I think it is a really sort of lesser known fact about Chromebooks that effectively, yeah, you are buying a laptop, but because it runs the Google Play Store, you get all of the mobile apps as well. So just like you had a tablet or a phone, you actually can use them through your Chromebook. So if you've got a touch Chromebook, you kind of get a tablet and a desktop machine in one. I do think there was a question that we should just address quickly, guys, before we finish up for this evening. And then I will also please just remind people about the feedback that we're going to put the screen up in a second. But we did have a question from Catherine about read and write. So with Catherine, with read and write, can you record your own voice using the text, and then your teacher has to? So read and write does actually have voice notes. So Chris shared Mote earlier for voice notes. Someone also was commenting on the Talk and Comment extension for voice notes. Read and write actually has a voice note part built into it as well. And in that sense, they all work quite similarly, that if the students have the extension, then the file is embedded in the comment as a playable link. But if the students don't have the extension, they do have to click the link and open an audio player. With read and write, you obviously could record yourself in that way. You also have the function within read and write. There is a turn into speech the entire page. So you can take a Google Doc or a web page, and it will actually create an MP3 of the entire page being read, not in your voice. But you can pick, an Australian female, or I don't know if they have New Zealand voices. Sorry, Kiwis on the call. Take that up with Text Help. But it does do a great job of turning the entire page so it can be listened to, through any sort of audio player as well. But I think that was pretty much the only question that we hadn't addressed as we're going along. So we do have the feedback link on the screen right now. So bit.ly/VicDET webinars. Please notice the capitalization in there. So lots of capitals, then a few lowercase letters. And we really do appreciate your feedback. It does help to shape our future webinars. And anything that you would like us to do differently, we are totally open to your feedback on that as well. So we are coming back again next week. And you can, we have Magic Genie Georgia has just dropped in the link to register for the webinar series. So if you haven't registered, if you're watching this through the YouTube link after the fact, I would encourage you to register for our webinar series, because then you get reminder emails, but you'll also get emailed the link directly to the recording, so you don't have to go and search for it afterwards. So you can register for that. We are back next week with our VicDET series.
So that's Tuesday, the 12th of May, and we're going to be looking at designing online assessment with Google. So Google Forms, but also using Google Sites to actually build up some like an e-portfolio for learners, so they can demonstrate their learning as well.
Awesome. I'm impressed that you guys have already planned that.
What? Oh my God. We plan these things so carefully, Kimberly.
I know you do, and you do a great job, and I'm very appreciative of you sharing your knowledge with our community here.
Thank you.
So thank you to everybody who has joined us live. Thank you if you're watching this any sort of repeat. Please do share this with others if you think it would be of use to them. The great thing about this webinar series, I think personally as an educator, is that you can jump through any bits that you already know. You can pause, rewind, freeze on the bits that you want to know more about, and so really customize the experience to make sure that when you're watching this afterwards, you get the key information that you need. So thank you again. I know we're a little bit over time. We will see you again next week. We appreciate everything that you're doing to support our young learners through this time, and stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again soon.
See you, team.
Bye.
See you.